This is Ansur, one of the most difficult bosses in Baldur's Gate 3, and he almost ruined my honor mode run. My friend and I started this fight pretty well. We controlled Myrmidons, steadily embraced Ansur's attacks and pushed him to the second stage. But then he decided it was enough. He called down the lightning and almost killed all of our characters, even though some of them had lightning resistance. With each move our end was getting closer, and we started thinking about tactical escape. This is when the brightest idea came to my mind: to use the Globe of Invulnerability spell and drink the lethargic potion so my powerful wizard could rest and restore all resources and safety. The plan was great, except for me forgetting about the concentration of the spell. Gale ended up sleeping right under Ansur's nose without any protection, and was burned to a crisp together with Lae'zel. I did an awesome job, killed 2 party members and used very valuable consumables in vain. Luckily my friend was smarter, and while Ansur was destroying me, he escaped with the last character and resurrected everybody at the camp. It was dangerous, stressful and incredibly fun. This story is just a showcase of what's possible in the hardest difficulty of Baldur's Gate 3. Usually I am not the player who chooses sadistic difficulties with only one save file. It always seemed too much. I'd have to spend a lot of time in preparation and there would be no guarantee in succession. This playthrough wasn't an exception. It started as a joke. Our party were wondering how far could we get. Our first try ended up fast, at the beginning of the first act because of some unfortunate circumstances. But we decided to take a second chance, and it turned out as the most unpredictable and memorable adventure in my gaming experience. Why does Honor Mode in Baldur's Gate 3 work? What other challenges did we face? And should you try it as well? Anyway, I believe that manual save systems, when you're able to make a checkpoint at any time, are evil. If this fight happened on one of other difficulties, we could just restart it and continue doing it as many times as necessary to brute force the boss. But in our case, when we had only one chance, we had to come up with unobvious solutions and even flee at the end. Usually there is no reason to use the fleeing mechanic. It's much easier and time effective to press a few buttons and reload the latest save. But when you don't have any other choice by design, you instantly start using all tools at your disposal. And game mechanics which previously didn't work start doing that. Each honor fight is longer in comparison to easier versions, because the players are encouraged to be creative with consumables and environment, as they may not live long enough to see another opportunity. And suddenly, many new ways of dealing with obstacles appear. A good example is the fight against the adamantine golem Grim in Grimforge. The most obvious way to defeat him is to use the huge Forge's crafting hammer. However, our party decided it would be too easy to follow the most obvious tactics and a bit risky to run across lava. So we started looking for other opportunities. First of all, we placed our ranger fighter Lae'zel at the top of the arena so she couldn't be reached. We considered her as an escape possibility. Apart from that, it was unclear at the start of the encounter how to deal with the Grim. The only vulnerability he had was bludgeoning damage. But it happened that my main character was a giant barbarian focused on throwing weapons. And luckily, my companion had found some junk hammers and maces before the fight. So we just used what we had, and while additional enemies' magma methods were controlled by Lae'zel from the top, the Grim was literally thrown by some junk to the death. This fight was enjoyably stressful, A sudden eureka of realizing that a very powerful enemy could be effectively killed by some random loot that happened to be in our pockets brought so much fun. And I had a question. What unique mechanics make combat of Baldur's Gate 3 Honor difficulty so enjoyable? I'm not a huge fan of difficulty settings in games, as sometimes they can be pretty confusing. How's the player supposed to choose how hard or easy a game should be when they've just launched it? Even in similar genres, there is a broad spectrum of variables which can be affected by this choice. There are games like Doom Eternal that are most interesting only on the hardest difficulties, and like Uncharted 4 that get broken there. What to say about RPGs with their vast gameplay options and tactical combat systems? While Baldur's Gate 3 has such a problem of choosing the difficulty for the new players, it has some real design reasons to have specifically the Honor option, and it doesn't feel like it was introduced just for show. This is where the heritage of the classic tabletop role-playing system of Dungeons and Dragons step in. In addition to the obvious one-save file for the whole playthrough and stricter enemies' attributes, there are legendary actions for important enemies just like in a tabletop version of D&D. This type of action can be performed outside of an entity's turn by either the game master's decision in a tabletop D&D or when specific conditions are met during the player's turn in Baldur's Gate 3.
It's gonna go ahead and use a legendary action to use an abyssal tendril. You watch as it doesn't even look forward, just the glowing red in its face, and one of these strange whipping tendrils reaches out and tries to pierce Ford, who is flying in their direction.
Keep your hentai out of this.
That's gonna be a 30...
Let me introduce Gerngoth Thorm. This golden lady could also end my Honor playthrough because of her legendary action. When she loses a specific amount of health, she attempts turning nearby enemies to gold. If one or several of the player's characters are unlucky enough to be in this area and fail a Constitution saving throw, they will become helpless for the next 4 turns, which is a lot. It was a surprise when 2 of our party members suffered this condition, but luckily Gael managed to resist it after some time. We regrouped, got ourselves together and finally defeated her. But it was a bit stressful. It turns out that unique Honor mode features force the player to play differently than on any other difficulty. Some tactics they get used to may not work here, and they have to adjust their playstyle in each encounter, because the price of failure with a single save is pretty big. So this mode was definitely made for the people who are familiar with the game and completed it at least once. But in return, it brings a bunch of new experiences. And I definitely would not want to belittle the importance of Larian's attention to details and hard work. Especially for this difficulty, they not only rebalanced all encounters but also came up with many unique actions, effects and even enemies. One of my brightest memories of the unique Honor mode situations is the fight against the Owlbear in the start of the first act. It doesn't have just some legendary action, it summons another Owlbear which can be lethal without proper preparation. Our party was able to distract them with a few NPCs, but it was so surprising, like the game specifically decided to give us a message. This is really the hardest difficulty. Unfortunately, I don't have footage of this fight from my playthrough, but searching on YouTube you can see how many guides there are for this encounter. By the way, let me know if you'd like to see a breakdown video say about difficulty settings in games. I mentioned Doom and Uncharted here, but I could explain my thoughts in detail and dive into this topic. There are also a few remarks I should mention about this Honor playthrough. It was only my second proper campaign from start to finish, and it was the first time when I played in co-op. What I'm trying to say is that I was very excited during the game, but partially it was because of these things in addition to the unique difficulty. And I want to express my gratitude to the coolest dwarf companion I could possibly have. Baldur's Gate 3 with and without friends is 2 different games. We laughed, helped each other, argued sometimes, but met titles and this adventure was absolutely wonderful. It feels like mentioned unique Honor properties are extra powerful in co-op, because the amount of fuck-ups you'll have to find a way out is multiplied by the amount of players in a game.
Will help me. Ignorant you may be, you've shown some prowess in scouting and combat by making it this far.
This necrom.
There was a time when my friend accidentally inspected some lantern in the Balthazar's chamber, and he instantly attacked us. So we had to deal with a new puzzle that appeared out of nowhere. No saves, increased difficulty. We were pretty powerful at that point, but still had to be careful. And such situations where we were on the edge of failure happened all the time. I was also able to try out new builds and story choices. An abjuration wizard who's effective when gets beaten, a giant ranged barbarian who just throws everything, Minsara rescue, the necromancer's defeat, Karlak's head for a fancy coat, stone gunpowder, defeated mermaids, alliance with Gortash, twins, Mizora, Harley, the Emperor. This one was only for the achievement, I swear. During this journey my tiefling barbarian went all the way from being chaotic good to chaotic evil, under the influence of my druid companion, and our party met a just end. The honor difficulty is not so hard actually, you just have to be careful, turn on your creativity sometimes and prepare in advance.
Let it be done. Gerdel Ironhand, hear me now! Set me free! Wait, what in the hells?
It's still the same good old Baldur's Gate 3 but modified. If you've completed it once, I can guarantee you that it won't disappoint. Seriously, I never thought I was capable of beating any game with only one save. But it never was about difficultness. Baldur's Gate 3 is designed around players' choices and unique gameplay situations. You don't have to really get it through completely, even so, I must admit that getting the achievement was satisfying. Just roam in the first act, talk with charismatic characters, beat several enemies, make a few bad decisions, and create your own story. This is what the Baldur's Gate 3 Honor mode is about. What else do the players need? And what are you still doing here? Go grab or find a friend and start a new Honor campaign! And don't forget to subscribe. Bye!
I won't stop you. But time is running out. So don't stay away for long. If you see reason, I'll be here, waiting. Right up to the moment the world ends.